Good evening, everyone, and welcome back to Teresa's Kitchen. I know some of you guys was wondering what happened, but I have a day job. I'm a school teacher here in Florida, so we have to really get back on our grind, especially with this virtual teaching. So I had a lot on my plate, but I'm gonna tell you what's gonna be on my plate for dinner tonight. I will be making some homemade garlic mashed potatoes with either fresh or minced garlic. You can make it with butter, salt, black pepper for taste. In addition to that, I'm gonna add on some shrimp and some steak to go on the side along with a nice luscious salad. So let's go ahead and get started. I'll be showing you some of the fresh ingredients in just a moment. As I stated before, I love everything to be made homemade. If I think I can make it homemade, well, that's what I'm gonna do. So the recipe is going to consist of some fresh red potatoes. Again, as I said, canned milk opposed to milk from the gallon. And again, I'm going to be using some minced garlic, a little garlic salt just to help enhance the flavor of the garlic and the potatoes, along with some black pepper and salt. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to just place a few potatoes in the pot, but I'm going to wash them off first in cold water. Make sure that they're nice and clean. After washing them, I will put them on medium high, and they should be cooking for at least a good 30-40 minutes until they get nice and tender. When I say tender, you can be able to put the fork all the way through it. So that's what I'm going to begin to do. As you can tell, I pretty much filled up the pot with enough potatoes. It's going to be about 3 people eating off this pot of potatoes. So what I'm going to do is place them under some cold water. And the cold water is going to cover every last one of these potatoes. I want them to cover the potatoes to the top. If you feel like it's too many potatoes, you can take them out the pot. Notice I left the skin on because I am going to be making them with the skin on. So they're mashed potatoes, red mashed potatoes with skin on with fresh garlic. So this is what we're going to be doing. I'm going to place it on top of the stove on medium heat and let it cook for at least 30 minutes. I'll be using like a half a stick of butter for all of the shrimp that I cleaned earlier. I'll be using some all-purpose seasoner, a little garlic salt. I don't want to over season the shrimp, so you can't have that shrimp taste at the same time. And Mrs. Dash have this lovely lemon lovely lemon pepper seasoning. I will use that because I love to have the flavor. And then I'm just going to put in some minced garlic. I'm going to put in at least 2 tablespoons of that. So that's what's going to be going into our sauteed shrimp. But what I'm going to do, I'm just going to season it now, let it set. Remember earlier when I was working on our potatoes? They're still boiling. I just took them off. Notice the color started changing. They're getting lighter. That means they're getting done. So we're going to let that cook just a little bit longer and we'll be back. So I seasoned my shrimp very well. I told you all of the ingredients that I'll be using. I'm going to set it to the side, and when I set it to the side, when I'm ready to make it, you'll see how it's going to be made. The potatoes are cooking. While we're waiting for all that to be done, I'm going to go ahead and slice up some red onions. These red onions, because remember I told you we're going to be having some steak and shrimp and garlic mashed potatoes with a nice salad. It will feel like that you're at a 5-star restaurant at your own home. So you don't need to go out there and buy all that and pay all that money. You can do it right here at home. So I'll be back after I'm done cutting up these nice red onions for our steak. I'm going to go ahead and slice up these red onions for the steak, and then once I'm done slicing up the red onions, I'm going to saute these onions in a little bit of butter, or you can use oil, whatever way you like to saute your onions to go with your steak. I have a ribeye that I've seasoned already. You guys know I like to season my stuff ahead of time. So when I did season my steak, I used some all-purpose seasoning, which is my favorite, the all-purpose seasoner, and I used just a little garlic salt. I didn't want to overdo it because, again, you don't want all the seasoning to overpower the flavor of your foods. But at least if you season it ahead of time, you'll have an opportunity to have a great tasting piece of meat. And that's what I like to do, season my meat ahead of time. So I have my onions, I'm gonna set them to the side. going to put my frying pan on so I can begin to saute my onions. Also, I'm going to take my steak out because I should have had it out a while ago so it can be at room temperature. So when I cook it, it will cook evenly. Remember to check on your potatoes periodically. I'm going to check on the potatoes right now. I'm going to put my fork in it. If the fork can go all the way through, then it's done. It's going through, but not all the way through. So I'm just going to give it a few more minutes to cook up. I'm going to go ahead and add some butter to the pan so I can begin to saute my onions. I'm going to saute my onions for a few minutes. FYI, remember that spinach is a leafy vegetable already, so it carries a lot of water to it. And plus it's frozen, so if you feel the need to add just a little bit of water, then do so. Let the pot cook on low, and that way the spinach will be done by the time everything else is cooked, and you can add whatever additional ingredients for flavoring. So the onions are done enough for me, so what I'm going to do is just transfer them over into a clean bowl and set them to the side. So once the steak is done, this is going to be the topper for the steak. So I'm just going to use the same pan that I cooked the steak in. Going to put about a tablespoon of butter in it. If you like cooking in butter, that's fine. If you like cooking it with oil, that's fine too. The key to making a good piece of steak is to make sure that your pan is hot. So what I'm going to do is just put the steak, it's about at least a 1/4 inch thick. So I'm going to put it inside the pan and let it cook. So the steak has been cooking at least 2 to 3 minutes on one side. I'm just going to go ahead and flip it over. It should be a little brown and crusty on one side from the butter. That's the steak right there. It has a little sizzling going on. I'm just going to let that cook for about another 3 to 4 minutes, and then I'm going to take it off, and then I'm going to let it rest. That's what I'm going to do for the steak. While we're waiting on the steak to finish cooking, I will be checking on the potatoes to see if they're fork tender. If they're fork tender, I will be draining the water out of them. So how can you tell if the potatoes are done? Once again, I'm going to just, I didn't have my bigger fork. I'm going to switch burners right quick so a little closer so you can see. The potatoes are still cooking, but you see how they begin to bulk up? That's one sign that they're most definitely ready. And then you just want to make sure you just take your fork and it begins to break. That's how you know that they're done. So what I'm going to do is basically drain the water off, and we'll go ahead and continue to make our mashed potatoes. So here I'm going to go ahead and drain all the hot water off of my potatoes. And remember, I said it was going to be skin on, right? So I'm just going to let them be there for a minute while I begin to add my other ingredients to making my garlic mashed potatoes. So to the pot, while it's still hot, the same pot, if you want to rinse it out, you can rinse out that same pot that you use and just add the butter to it. So to that pot, I'm going to add at least 3/4 of a stick of butter. And I'm just going to let it melt. And then I'm also going to add at least 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. Big tablespoons of garlic, because you want it to have that garlic flavor. If you want to use fresh garlic, you're more than welcome. And you're only going to saute it for a few minutes because it's minced. You see? Inside the pot, it's minced. So you're setting up your flavor profile for your garlic mashed potatoes. So I'm just going to turn my steak one more time while you hear them back there frying. And In about 1 more minute, I'm going to take them off and I'm just going to let them rest. I don't like my steak well done, so I'm just going to go ahead and take off the eye right now. Set it to the side so it can begin to rest. And this is what my steak will look like. Remember I told you it was at least 1/4 of an inch thick. I'm just going to let it sit aside and let it rest. Because I don't want it well done. Some people like it well done, I don't. And you could just add the butter, because that's all it is, across the steak. So I'm going to go ahead and clean out the pan, and I'm going to get this pan ready for the shrimp. Here I had like a whole bag of potatoes, so I'll probably use like 3/4 of the bag of potatoes. What I'm getting ready to do now is I'm going to go ahead and mash them up because they're already done. So what I like to do to ensure that each and every one of the potatoes have been incorporated into the mashed potatoes, I'm going to do one potato at a time. So here are my potatoes. I know it sounds kind of anal, but that's just me. I just want to make sure that they're going to be nice and creamy. So remove all this extra stuff out of the way. So here's my pot that I've sauteed my garlic and butter together in. So I'm just going to add a couple of potatoes at a time to the pot, and I'm going to just mash them up into the mixture. So I can have that garlic butter mashed potato profile. And you can use a potato masher. If you don't have a potato masher, do it the old way with a fork, a good sturdy fork to mash your potatoes. I love to eat garlic mashed potatoes. I don't like any other mashed potatoes. And again, go ahead and just start adding your potatoes a couple at a time. That way you know that the mashed potatoes are really mashed and incorporated really well with your garlic and butter. So I'm done. That was easy, but I'm not done yet because I still have additional ingredients to add to it. But I just want to make sure that they're mashed. And no, the skin is not going to kill you. It's actually good for you because I hear there's a lot of vitamins and stuff in it, so that's why I like to leave the skin on. So far, this is where we are. I will be adding at least a half a can of milk. If I think I need more, then I'll add some more. Again, I'm using canned milk opposed to refrigerated milk, cow milk or whatever. And it's gonna just give it a great flavor profile. So now it's all about your taste buds. I have all of the potatoes mixed up with the garlic and butter mixture that I sauteed earlier. So now I'm going to begin to add gradually, a little bit at a time, some milk to my garlic potatoes. And then I'm just going to mix. It's all about the consistency that you want in your mashed potato mixture. So I'm just going to mix it up. And I don't want no runny mashed potatoes, so I don't think I'm going to put that much milk to it. And you can also do a taste test to see how you want your potatoes to taste. You want to make sure you have enough salt, you want to make sure you have enough butter, enough garlic, and if you don't, you add a little bit at a time. You don't want to overdo it the first time, because the first time when you overdo it, can't change it. I think I might do a little taste test. And the reason why I want to do the taste test before I add any additional ingredients, remember I put in the minced garlic and I put in the butter. Remember the butter is already have some salt content to it. So I just want to taste it to make sure that it's not salty or if it has enough flavor. I taste the garlic, which is good. but I need some salt. So what I probably would want to do, what you can add a little garlic salt to it. You can add at least, it depends on how much salt you want to add. And then also our friend, the Mr. Black Pepper. That's what it needs. So you can mix it again and just taste it and see if it's enough. You can also see if you have enough milk. If you don't have enough milk, you can add some more milk, because the longer the potatoes sit, they tend to thicken up. So I know you want some creamy mashed potatoes like these are. They're creamy right now. So I would probably just add a little bit more, because I know I'm not gonna eat right away, because I'm still working on the other food. So you can do another taste test to see if you have enough of the ingredients as far as the garlic, the black pepper, and the salt. And do you see how the potatoes are? That's why I do the potatoes one at a time, to make sure they come out creamy. And you really don't see all that skin, because I've pretty much mashed it up pretty good. So let's go on to the next item, which would be our shrimp. What I like to do, I'm gonna just place the potatoes on low, keep them warm, and I'm just gonna put like a tablespoon of butter on top, and I'm just gonna cover it up. So when you're ready to serve, there's just some butter on top of it that's pretty much melted through. Let me go ahead and cover it. Then our next thing is, which I'm afraid, I had this pan on for a little minute. I'm gonna add some butter to this pan. Hopefully it doesn't. Okay, that's perfect. This is gonna be for the shrimp. We want some butter for this shrimp. So I'm adding some butter to the pan for the shrimp that was cleaned earlier. Remember that? Yes. Let me get the top to this pot so I can put it on these mashed potatoes so they just stay nice and warm till we're ready. Oh, by the way, don't forget about that spinach. That's over there. Yes. To the spinach, I added my all-purpose seasoner. Remember I told you it was steamed? Not steamed, it was already frozen. So I really, if you want to add a little bit of water, you can. You can add the all-purpose seasoning to it. And our good old friend, some butter for some flavor. That's what I did. This is what I didn't add earlier. So I'm going to add some butter. And I'm going to use at least 2 tablespoons of butter. I'm just going to let that keep simmering because it's almost done. So here's the pan for the shrimp, right? See it, see it, see it, see it. So to my pan, I'm going to add at least 2 tablespoons of minced garlic. This is the garlic night. This is the night of the garlic. Garlic and butter. It's our heroes for tonight. So yes, that's what I'm gonna do. And I'm just gonna let it cook down just a little bit. Let me turn these potatoes down because I actually turned the wrong eye down. So I hope you guys can see in the pan. I got the garlic and butter going on. See? Same thing with the potatoes. And remember, when I made the, when I cleaned the shrimp, I added Mrs. Dash lemon pepper seasoning along with the Padilla all-purpose seasoner and a little garlic salt. Just a little bit. So when this pan begins to sizzle once again, I'm gonna add the shrimp to it. And it shouldn't take that long. Once the shrimp begin to turn opaque, like a different color, and it begins to curl up, you don't want to overcook it, because I personally don't like overcooked shrimp because it's rubbery. So we're gonna let that pan go to sizzling before we're able to actually put the shrimp in it. So this is my version of garlic and butter shrimp. And it's gonna have so many different profiles in it because it's lemony and it's buttery and it's garlicky. So yeah, instead of going to a 5-star restaurant, you can be doing it here at home. Oh gee, let me wash this off right quick. I'll be right back. So here on top of the stove, hope you can see the shrimp is cooking away. So what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna go ahead and begin to turn it over. Again, we want it to turn like an opaque color, like it's turning now. And I really don't want it to overcook, so let me go ahead and begin to turn it over. So what I decided to do is just add a little bit more butter to it. You can see from when the shrimp was first cleaned, and now look at how they basically curled up, and that's how you know when they're almost done, is because they begin to curl up. So I'm just gonna allow that butter to begin to melt. Once it melts, I'm gonna toss it one more time, and I'm gonna take it out the pan, and then I will be serving up what we cooked for tonight. So now the shrimp is done, so I'm gonna go ahead and plate up everything, and you can basically see how everything turned out, and I hope you will enjoy. So here's the final product. I have the steak over there on the other end with the sauteed onions, along with the homemade garlic mashed potatoes that's in the middle, with the garlic shrimp on each side, the garlic butter shrimp, and the frozen vegetable spinach. So if you like what you see, please like, comment, and share, and I hope you will enjoy. And once again, thank you for being here at Teresa's Kitchen, and have a wonderful night.